All right, let's dive into something pretty important today, background checks, specifically for home and hospice care. Yeah, it's one of those things, you don't really think about it until you need it. Exactly. And we've got this FAQ, right? It kind of lays out all the ins and outs, the nitty-gritty. Excellent. It gets into all the nuances. And I think the first thing that jumps out, at least for me, is...
Why even bother? I mean, it seems obvious, right? You want to protect vulnerable people.
Of course, that's the core of it. But think about it from the provider's perspective, too. There are legal and ethical reasons they have to be on top of this.
So it's not just about, good practice. There are ethical reasons, actual legal ramifications.
Oh, absolutely.
Negligent hiring is a big one.
Negligent hiring, right?
Like if a provider hires someone and they didn't do a thorough background check and that person ends up harming a patient.
Oh, wow.
Especially if that person had a history of something like, elder abuse. The provider could be held liable.
Yeah, that's serious.
And then there's the whole regulatory maze, state and federal laws. Background checks are proof that they've done their homework.
So it's like a safeguard for everyone involved.
Yeah, protects the patient, protects the provider.
Exactly. 100%. And that trust starts with a comprehensive background check, not just a quick search in a database.
We're talking deep dive.
So, what exactly does that mean, a deep dive? What all are they looking at?
Well, criminal history is a given, but we're also talking driving records, drug tests, references, the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
That's a lot more than I thought.
The goal is to paint a full picture of the individual.
Which brings up another question, right?
Yeah.
How much access do individuals have to their own information? Like, what about their rights in all of this?
That's where informed consent and transparency are super important.
So they can't just run these checks without the person knowing?
Nope. The individual has to know what's being looked into and why. They even have the right to see the report.
That makes sense.
And this FAQ is very clear that if anything's inaccurate, the individual can absolutely dispute it. It's all about being open and honest.
That's good to know, but here's something that I've always wondered about.
What about second chances?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Like, we all make mistakes.
We do.
Should something that happened years ago, maybe a minor offense, should that automatically disqualify someone from a career in caregiving?
It's tricky.
This FAQ really emphasizes looking at the context. What was the nature of the offense? How long ago was it? Any signs of rehabilitation?
So someone who got a DUI 20 years ago but has been sober since?
That's different from someone with a recent history of violence.
Exactly.
It's not a one-size-fits-all situation. Every case needs to be looked at individually.
Makes sense.
So we've talked about the individual, but what about all this data?
I mean, it's pretty personal stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking highly sensitive personal information.
It's a huge responsibility for everyone involved.
Right. You need to make sure it's secure, but it also needs to be accessible for the checks to be meaningful.
That's the balancing act, and this FAQ highlights the importance of robust security measures. And this is where technology comes in, right?
I mean, I was reading about continuous monitoring and AI. It's pretty futuristic.
Yeah, they even mentioned machine learning in this FAQ.
The potential is incredible. Imagine a system that flags potential issues in real time. Constant updates.
Wow, so it could be way more efficient and accurate.
Absolutely. But there are some concerns too.
Like what?
Bias in AI is a big one. We have to be very careful that these systems don't unfairly disadvantage certain groups.
Right, the technology is amazing, but it has to be used responsibly.
Couldn't agree more.
And it all circles back to how these checks affect people with criminal records.
Background checks can be a huge barrier to employment, and we can't forget that.
It's all about finding that balance.
Right, yeah. Protecting the vulnerable, but also giving people a chance to rebuild their lives.
That's the key takeaway. This isn't about saying yes or no to background checks.
Right, it's more nuanced than that.
It's about creating a system that's fair, effective, and respects everyone's rights.
That's the challenge.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot to think about. I mean, this FAQ, it seems simple at first, but wow. And that's what's so great about it. Makes you question, makes you think about what truly matters. Safety, fairness, second chances. Yeah, a lot to unpack there. It's not just about checking boxes, it's about our values as a society. Exactly. How do we want this system to work? How do we balance all these different needs? big questions for all of us to consider. And hopefully this deep dive has given everyone listening a little more to chew on. Absolutely, thanks for joining us on this one. It's been insightful, you got it. And remember, keep those questions coming, we're here to dig deeper.